As he set foot on the island, Bernardo felt energized, like when he was hunting or dancing. Then he smelt it, the stench of ravens. It was a good thing he was here too, before they tripped over the secret base. He was really saving the Council Toad's bacon, so to speak. Bernardo hoped his mother wasn't watching. I need more materials, thought Bernardo. There were stickers all over the platform for really hot lady foxes, with pictures and addresses and everything. See? Bernardo was a hero of the revolution. He deserved a medal. Soon, he deserved every medal they had, and hopefully one big medal ceremony in front of everybody with trumpets so everyone could know what he'd accomplished. Hey, why don't you guys fight in groups? Oh, I know. Because there's no I in team. long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good. Only he had some way to break the ice. Or convince it he was afraid. Dreams may come, he thought. And then, he found out.
This is yours, said Renato.
But he couldn't hear his enemy's answer. I pick you! Inside the rebel base, Renato was invited to the council speaker's private chambers. So, this is the Iblis Stone? He said. I can feel its power. Renato told her how he had fed the core to the stone and made something even more useful than either. Crazy like a fox, she croaked. And Renato chuckled as if he'd never heard the joke before. We've given you the best quarters and a bottle of Tantalonian firewater. All for you. So they'd remembered. He woke in the morning with the sweetest of hangovers. But the Iblis Stone was gone from his gauntlet. The corridors were empty, except for a few rebels who looked just as hungover as him. Come on, you'll miss the battle, they yelled. Renato added sail as the Farfarer scudded across the sky. Who could have taken the Iblis Stone? Was it some Imperial spy? He would find him, and kill him, and take the stone back. Renato had a bad taste in his mouth. He was killing ravens, but it wasn't fun. It felt like a chore. Oh, Renato hated chores. As a fox kid, he'd gone hungry rather than clean his room. He still didn't clean his room, he just moved house every few years. Who had the Iblis Stone anyway? Up ahead, he could hear screaming and croaking and cawing. But who was winning? You couldn't find high-quality ore like this just anywhere. Just anywhere with chests. Somebody had been watching. There was an engraving. Maximum capacity, 130 people.
Such delicious-looking eyeballs!
Caught the lead, Raven.
Thank you, I think, said Renato. Never heard of you like.
As she ran forward, Renato noticed that some ravens were starting to ignore him. Just running away. Who were they running from? Some hero of the revolution? If some other so-called hero of the revolution had the stone and tried to take his victory and his medals, Renato was gonna be seriously pissed off. He was the hero, not some other bozo. He'd once met a pirate captain. He used hooks to get around his ship. What was his name again? wondered if he could learn to cook this way. Probably not. Finally, Renato came to the Emperor's ship. Zenobia lay dead in front of it. The ship was a wreck. Ravens lay dead, sprawled everywhere. Bloody feathers spattered across the deck and the dock. The council speaker came out. She was waving a sword around like a flag. "Look at me, Renato!" she croaked. The Iblis stone on the sword was black as coal. "Now I will be Empress, and all shall tremble before me," she croaked. So the stone had her. It was in her brain, whining for blood. "I'm afraid I can't allow that," said Renato, and moved to fight her. Toads are not usually good with swords. Something about the footwork. And the council speaker was not even a warrior. She was always tripping over things, which is quite an impressive achievement when you're a toad. Yet somehow, she was pressing Renato backwards as he desperately tried to keep her sword away from his throat. "Look, why don't you keep the stone?" he asked. "You deserve it." "Blood and souls for Iblis," she croaked. "Blood and souls." She got under his guard with her sword. It was just the tip. But sometimes just the tip is enough. He could feel his soul being sucked into the stone. As he died, he felt embarrassed more than anything else. And just like that, he was alive again, and back on the Farfarer, still fleeing burning Ubar. The book was still open before him. So, the book was a portal. It took you to the future, when your destinies would branch. He had failed and died 3 times, and he hadn't learned anything new this time. He'd done the same thing twice, yet expected a different outcome. But he was starting to feel like he was getting the hang of this. There was a way through to victory. He could feel it. He just had to keep running the path of destinies. With that, the book fluttered back to the beginning, and he fell into it. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced, or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it, to take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course. Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens? Every child knew about the Sky Ripper. The Transcendent Emperor had buried its pieces. What could have brought them to light? This Emperor, Isengrim III, had once been kind, but he'd gone mad. And now he was conducting secret, obscene rituals to bring back the lost gods. Had he, somehow, summoned the long-lost components of the legendary weapon out of the deep places of the earth? It was more than Renato could fathom. But if he could find a legendary weapon, he would use it. As he set foot on the island, Renato couldn't help feeling a bit curious. Was Lapino still waiting to be rescued? No. He was probably drinking champagne with the ravens. Did ravens drink champagne? Did rabbits? Renato felt oddly thirsty, come to think of it. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? Renato never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think too much. He just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it?
It was time to make a new sword.
Fire? Yes, please. Hello? The eyes have had it? The people who had built this castle, did they even know what monstrous weapon lay hidden within their walls? The Sky Ripper could destroy anything it touched, or so the legend said. As the Transcendent Emperor had fought the Lost Gods, thousands of thousands had died. But Reynardo had been through wars. The only merciful war was a short one. Well, he'd always wanted to do that.
Let's do this again sometime.
Boy, if looks could kill. Was going to get all these bloodstains out of his tunic. Firewalls only let you through if they think you're hot enough. Odd that they never locked these things. That had been his mistake before, thinking he could win a battle of wills with an ancient evil all by himself. He had to be cleverer than that, or braver, or something. There it was. Skyripper's armature. The stuff that dreams are made of. Engineers' dreams, anyway. The device was intricate. No one alive had the skill to make a thing like it. How was it part of a weapon at all? He'd have to ask a scientist. But first, he'd get the second piece. Skyripper had a heart. A core that had come to rest on the next island. Well, there was another island he could reach. Zenobia had just invaded it with her father's Raven battalions. She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed one friend to get this armature, was it? He didn't need to hurry to face her. She would find him. It was a no-brainer. He'd sacrificed his old friend Lapino to get the armature. And the armature was useless by itself, only a series of coils and wheels. War demanded sacrifices, and he would make more before the end. He would have to choose the greatest good, no matter how much it cost him. Zenobia. Well, he would see her sooner or later, across a battlefield or a sword's point before all this was over. He was sure of that. The power was in the core. Obviously, he had to get the core. He looked up at the old trees around him. They were so big and so old. They'd been there before he was born, and they'd be there after he'd passed into legend. Was he confronting his own unimportance? What had got into him? He was no philosopher. Anyway, who cares? He was plenty important. He was a hero, and soon he'd prove it. Don't look down, he thought. There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. You know, ore is pretty heavy to carry. You know what's not? A new sword. there were fewer and fewer trees. There were only these huge crystalline growths. Had those been here before? He no longer heard birds except for the feverish cawing of the ravens when they attacked. He couldn't smell the small animals of the forest, the mice and rabbits. Where had they gone? And he was getting hungry too. This was an unhealthy place to be. To everything, there is a season. He turned over and died. The 20-sided core made him feel physically sick. Once he had sneaked into a temple of the dark art, and he hadn't liked what he smelt and saw there. This felt like that. As quick as he could, he wrangled the icosahedron into the armature. The wheels began to spin, then glow. The sick feeling quickly spun away. Now he only felt sad. He had lost good friends for this war apparatus. Maybe Lapino wasn't such a good friend. Yeah, that made him feel better. He carried his prize back to the Farfarer. Now, he had to make his next move. There was a key Imperial outpost on the Nexus. If this really was some sort of superweapon, he could use it to wreak havoc on the enemy. And if it wasn't, well, better to know that before the final battle. But maybe he should show it to some scientists first. There was an observatory on the Nexus. Maybe he should go there before he fired it. Of course, if you've just assembled a weapon out of legend that can exile gods from the world, you'd want to have a scientist or two look at it. And even if they disagreed and he had time, he could ask Calaveras himself. Yes, the observatory would be his objective. Why had the parts of the Sky Ripper only surfaced now, thousands of years after the Transcendent Emperor had dismantled it? The mad Emperor Isengrim had performed terrible, bloodthirsty rituals to invoke the lost gods. Was that why these ancient artifacts were rising out of the ground? How perfect, then, that the Sky Ripper would reappear to be his destruction.
The Emperor! Called the ravens.
Renato loved to improve his gear. where he could find a snack. He was feeling a bit peckish. A legendary weapon was exactly what the rebellion needed. They were outnumbered. The once kind emperor had become a tyrant. But his ravens stayed loyal, for he fed them his victims, and the other animals were too frightened to rebel. Renato shuddered at what the emperor was trying to do. To bring back the lost gods, the Black Harvest, the Black Sun? No. He would stop that toad, no matter what the risk. He wished there were more pylons he could use the hook on. They really needed to construct additional pylons. Of all the artisans he was creating employment for. Truly, he was a job creator. Hey, a workbench! He could try out his new bling. This would be the perfect place for a tic-tac-toe board. To make sure his sword was still working. Yep. Renato was thrilled. The scientists seemed to think he'd put the Sky Ripper together right. But one toad was worried.
Yeah, the Sky Ripper could tear a hole in existence itself. There are invisible strings that tie the universe together. If the Sky Ripper cut one, the hole would widen and widen until our whole existence fell into it.
Another toad sighed.
Irving still believes in string theory.
At least go see Calaveras.
Yeah, said the worried toad.
He knows more than anyone else has forgotten about the Transcendent Emperor.
If anyone could tell him how to use this weapon safely, it would be Calaveras. It was he who had told Renato how to find it in the first place. But maybe he had to give up on using it as a weapon. Maybe he had to go to the secret rebel base and ask the generals there what he could do with a weapon that he dared not use. Calaveras again. The scientists at the observatory were smart enough. But what did they know of the Transcendent Emperor? He hoped it wouldn't delay him too long. The rebels had scheduled the final battle soon. Every day they delayed risked the exposure of the secret base. And some soldiers were already drifting back to their homes and families. Calaveras would fix the Sky Ripper for him, and then he would win the final battle. Maybe it was the cold, but after a few steps, Renato's optimism started to slump. What if Calaveras couldn't help? Did Renato dare use the Sky Ripper? Oh, he hated that he had chosen this path. It was so much simpler to rescue friends and attack enemies, even if some of those friends were more trouble than his enemies. Some of those enemies had been friends before and might be lovers after. Okay, it wasn't all that much simpler, no. Physics made his brain hurt. That, at least, he was sure of. I guess now I find out what's next, he thought. One small step for a fox, he thought.
mother had never let him wave his sword around the room. I guess he was still compensating for that.
It was time for a little exploration. He was practically sure he'd find something useful in one of these things. He tried to focus on the now. The ravens who seemed everywhere all the time. Where did they hatch from? Were there giant raven hatcheries somewhere, or did they have families? Ooh, he didn't want to think about raven mummies raising their darling raven chicks. Yeah, Calvaris would help. He would make Renato feel better about using the Sky Ripper. And then Renato wouldn't have to worry about ravens ever again. Renato wondered idly if people who had built these poles had really, really long tentacles.
going spectacularly well, thought Renato.
A chest that shiny deserved to be opened.
Truth was, Renato really liked the sound his sword made in the air.
The platform used a hybrid propulsion system fueled by anti-gravity and wishful thinking. Open, says me. Renato had sacrificed a friend for the Sky Ripper. It would be worth it if he could bring a super weapon to the rebellion, but the scientists had ruined everything. Calaveras had never let him down.
Yeah, of course I can make it work better.
But when Renato explained about the strings, Calaveras grew thoughtful.
Oh, strings, you say? Well, the Arcana do speak of the ties that bind the world.
He drew many intricate symbols in the dirt.
Yeah, so, according to my calculations, each time you fire, I'm afraid there's a 1 in 120 chance you'll destroy the universe.
That's pretty good odds. That's like rolling, 21 dice and they all come up 6. What are the odds of that?
What? No! It's more like 2.716s in a row.
Anyway, with those odds, it won't happen if I use it just once.
What? No. That's so not right. Each time you use it... Okay, look. Just don't use it ever. At all, okay?
All right, I guess. As he sailed away from the mountains, Renato could see clouds darkening. Rain? No. Ships. Imperial ships, swarming thick as bees. This was it. The big battle. They could not afford to lose this one. What if it did not go well? What if he had to use the Sky Ripper? Could he gamble the universe? On the other hand, What were the odds of rolling 21 sixes in a row? The battle was not going spectacularly well. What had the rebels been thinking? They'd been thinking he would bring the Sky Ripper, or the Iblis Stone, or that he'd sideline Zenobia somehow, or turn her. Couldn't he use the Sky Ripper just once? After all, if chances were 1 in 128, that meant he'd for sure be okay the first time. They'd get worse each time he used it, but the first time would be okay, right? He wasn't sure that it was right. So he didn't fire the Sky Ripper. He just brought it along, in case. A portal that led right into the middle of the fleet. It was a glaring weakness in the defense. If they didn't want their things broken, they really ought to make them stronger. Whoa, personal space. I should go, he thought. For once, he didn't have anything clever to say. So he died. dead tired. Then he was just dead. Renato wondered if his future self had commissioned these poles. Renato did not feel well. In fact, he felt dead.
And I was just getting warmed up, he thought.
Someone had told him the odds didn't change just because you'd had a streak of good luck. His gut told him that was wrong, though. And he always listened to his gut. On the other hand, 128 chances to win. But one of them would destroy the universe. That seemed a bit serious. Maybe he could defeat the Emperor without firing the Sky Ripper. Maybe he could bluff, but with a real weapon. Like in cards, when you had 3 knaves, but you pretended you had a fizbin. That could work. A very clever engineer named Elon Musk got his start making floating platforms. Not many people knew that. We'll always have Paris, he thought. and then he died. Close to you.
He set up the Sky Ripper and let it warm up. He would bluff if he had to. Zenobia came out, flanked by a very daunting platoon of ravens. "You won't actually use that," she said in that annoying, "I know everything because I'm a cat and you know nothing because you're just a fox" voice she had. "Oh, I know the odds." Good, because there's a real chance you could destroy the universe. No, not the first time I use it. The odds are too low. What? No? Yeah, sure. The first time, the odds are practically nothing. They only go up if I use it a bunch more times. No, but that's not how odds work. Didn't you pay attention in class? Now surrender, or I'll use it. Just once, he said. Don't.
He felt sure the odds were with him. He had to go with his gut. That's what heroes do. "Fire," he said. "Please?" The Sky Ripper fired. With a tremendous whoosh, the Emperor's flagship went up in flames. It was all he noticed.
There was a hole in the air. A blackness, like a tear in a parchment. Wind was blowing into it, widening it. It grew larger, and even larger. Crates fell upwards into it, and the world itself seemed bent, like the reflection on a curved mirror, as it poured into the ravenous hole. 1 in 128. What are the odds?
thought Reynardo. And then everything fell into the hole and was gone. But he'd learned another true thing. The core was powerful, but dangerous if used improperly. There would be a way to win. Reynardo could feel it. He'd have to explore choices he'd never made before he could figure it all out, though. And with that, the book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again. And he fell. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Reynardo knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it, to take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Reynardo had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Reynardo really leave an old friend to the Ravens? The island was windswept desert. No one went there except ostriches and ostrich hunters. The Iblis stone. It would whisper promises in his ear, offer him power for blood. But this time, Reynardo was sure he could master it. And so, Reynardo went ostrich hunting. Every child could sing verses about the Sky Ripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away. Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals? Who made all these ore chests anyway? Well, you could have quite a business doing that. What was he doing here? Last time, the stone had fought him for possession of his own soul. Ravens were already here, cawing in frustration. They were still searching for a way in. Good. Then he hadn't come too late. Once, he'd found a Superman issue #1 in mint condition in a jar he'd broken. He planned to keep breaking things until he had the whole series. could have gone better, thought Renato as he died. Renato was remembering all his old tricks, and some new ones. Now, he really ought to ask for a raise. Or I could go that way, he thought. Wait, what? How was he outside? Hadn't he taken an elevator into the depths of the earth? Someone needs a bath. No skateboarding, the sign said.
Ooh, sparkly, thought Renardo.
There had to be some way to use the Iblis stone. It was old, wasn't it? People are so much cleverer now. And Renardo was pretty sure he was cleverer than most people. Haven't you always wanted to do that? Had been in boat crashes that were more fun. The Ravens at least could not get past this point. Obviously the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders. Don't get ahead of yourself, lad. Renardo could feel his fur singe. It was a stone of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made solid. Nervous, he picked it up. I can make you mighty. Who said that? It was the stone. Eager, thirsty. Kill the Emperor's daughter. Now you Emperor. That
seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch, but they had been close once.
And he had a sneaking suspicion the gem would try to control him.
Why not capture the core of Skyripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon.
What's the core?
Said the stone anxiously.
But even though Renato knew how evil the gem was, he had a clever plan for dealing with it. The gem could give great power, but it was evil. But Renato had a plan. He would divide the stone into the power half and the evil half. He sought out the sage Calaveras.
Oh, you need a mirror of splitting.
Croaked Calaveras.
I can make one.
Calaveras set up various shiny things. And soon Renato was setting the stone down in the middle of Calaveras' lab. There was a flash, and now Renato was looking at himself, except with a mustache and a goatee and darker hair. There were two Iblis stones, one light and one dark. Renato took the light one. He felt a rush of great power. Now I could defeat the Emperor. Wait a minute. Unfortunately, he couldn't think of any way to use it without hurting someone. That wouldn't be nice. Give me that, said his evil-looking twin, and he drew his sword. He only got it halfway out of the scabbard when he fainted from the effort. Obviously, neither weak, evil Renato nor powerful, nice Renato was any threat to the Empire. After the Emperor's victory, they were exhibited in a museum until time ended, which was soon after. He had tried something bold and paid the price for it.
Every child could sing verses about the Skyripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away.
Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals?
A present? For me?
What was he doing here? The last time, the stone had fought him for possession of his own soul.
Get over here!
Slippy's hit, he thought. Ravens were already here, cawing in frustration. They were still searching for a way in. Good. Then he hadn't come too late. Where Renato went next, we cannot follow. Yet. Touché, he said, and died. My God, it's full of stars. Go away. everything hurt. And then it didn't. What's for dinner, he thought. Hope it's not broccoli. It was definitely easier to fight inanimate objects. A road less traveled. This could be fun. If it wasn't fatal, that is.
Kill the fox!
Caught the ravens. At least they do original.
Should have done a barrel roll, he thought, as he died. fishy? Building these platforms was so expensive, they'd run out of budget for guardrails. Taylor was going to charge for all the holes in his clothes. Now he could slice the wings off a fly in the air. Not that he would. It's sort of mean, really. Rosebud, he said to no one in particular as he died. Can't be dying, he thought. I'm the hero. This one looked familiar. Had he lost this one in a card game? Welcome back, he thought. The traitors! Caught the ravens. The Ravens at least could not get past this point. Obviously, the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders. There was a sign. Take the goat across first. It was a stone of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made solid. Nervous, he picked it up. I can make you mighty. Who said that? Give me blood. It was the stone, eager, thirsty. That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch, but they had been close once. And he had a sneaking suspicion the gem would try to control him. Why not capture the core of Sky Ripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the Transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon. Not the core, said the stone anxiously. But even though Renato knew how evil the gem was, he had a clever plan for dealing with it. Was he listening to a talking rock? Ah, but the rock had a point. If the stone could truly turn him into a powerful warrior, he could defeat the Emperor with the very weapon the wicked old toad had sought for himself. To be a hero, you had to sacrifice old friends sometimes, especially when they've become enemies. As he placed the impossibly black crystal in his gauntlet, Renato had a sudden vision. Charred fields covered in dead ravens below a black sun. Was it the time of the lost gods before the Transcendent Emperor? Was it the future? Feed his souls, it whispered. Take the power. He could feel the stone's hunger for souls, its thirst for blood. All right, I get it. This was going to be interesting. We needed some way to break the ice with this wall, so to speak. Gogglers. Renato hated gogglers. It was almost impossible to sneak past them. If one didn't spot you, another one would. Renato hated gogglers. It freaked him out to cut them. Zenobia was waiting for Renato. She was alone, confident as always. Fire danced at the tips of her claws.
Are you here to surrender? She seemed as cocksure as he felt. But she didn't know he had the stone. And I've missed you too, love. He chuckled.
She spotted the stone and bolted without another word. He hadn't noticed that path before. This jewel was more than sparkly. It had arcane power and an engraving. To Cindy. For some reason, Renato remembered a fairy tale his mother had told him about a land where only the apes talked. Animals went around like tails. The ravens on Zenobia's island were no match for Renato. They screamed as the stones sucked out their souls. And with each death, he felt stronger. Take the power, the stone told him. Finally, Renato caught up to her. He had never seen her scared before. At school, she'd been the determined, brave one. Now her eyes were wide, frightened. He didn't like seeing her this way. Kill her, whispered the stone. You cannot win your rebellion without it. Please. No, said Zenobia. Not that way. Oh, they had been so close once. Could he really feed her soul to his demonic gem? But if he spared her,
he would not get the full power of the stone. Oh, how could he be the hero he wanted to be? Reynardo hesitated. Zenobia was his greatest enemy. She was the Emperor's daughter and his greatest general, and the single person Reynardo least wanted to remove from this world, especially that way. She was holding her arms out before her, hands fluttering, fending him off with hopeless urgency. Nope, she was weaving a spell. He couldn't move.
This thing is evil, she said. She slid the Iblastone out of its slot in his gauntlet and slipped it into a bag. Maybe we can learn from it.
She eyed him with a strange, wry, apologetic look. I missed you too. And before he could move again, she was gone. Learn from the Iblastone? What did that mean? Would she take it to the palace or to the observatory on the Nexus? If she thought it was evil, she wouldn't want it in the palace.
And, after all, it was evil, wasn't it?
Maybe I can outrace it to the observatory, thought Reynardo. Cats can run faster, but foxes can run longer. Reynardo felt a little sick. Ever since Zenobia had taken the stone from him, he'd felt an ache that wouldn't go away. He missed it. He wanted it back. He needed it back. Why hadn't he killed her when he had the chance? She was the enemy. He hadn't even seen her in 14 years. Why had he hesitated? You're a sucker for an empowered woman. Reynardo kicked himself. Don't make that mistake again. Nice. That could be useful. Zenobia thought the stone was evil. Was it?
Well, yes, but he still longed to have it back.
He'd felt so good killing ravens with it, and yet he'd felt unclean ever since he'd touched it. She confused him. She'd made him want to be a better fox, and then she'd abandoned him. never telling him she was the Emperor's daughter, never contacting him since. Well, who was she to tell him the stone was evil?
And while he was trying to recover the stone Zenobia had taken from him, the Imperial fleet was tightening its grip. He might fail to save the rebellion, and it would all be her fault. Renato felt a burst of outrage. Not only had she stolen his gem, she'd also stolen his scientists. Sure, they were neutral, but they had helped him discover what the Emperor was up to. They were supposed to be helping me, Renato thought. So unfair. Energy spheres. Easy to dodge, but boy did they sting if you didn't pay attention. Imagine getting a horse up in one of these things. He would be cursing a blue streak. The scientist's toes were pointing arcane instruments at the stone and looking at it through prisms and reflections. Mine, said Renato as he took back the stone.
Well, we need that for science,
Croaked the toads. So he killed them. He felt better immediately. Smarter, too. I thought you'd never come for me, whispered the stone. Then, a far speaker toad croaked, and something like Zenobia's voice.
Renato, leave the stone with the toads. It will swallow your soul. You'll kill everyone you love.
That did seem vaguely familiar. But Renato had an army to lead, an empire to bring down.
I know you can fight this thing.
Zenobia continued in the far speaker's croak.
You let me live. You know how evil it is. It will destroy you, Renato. It will destroy everything you love.
He had tried to convince himself that this time he would control the Iblis stone. But he could feel his will becoming brittle. She was right. He would get rid of it. Right? Now. Or now. He didn't really want to. I know. I'll go to the mountains, Renato thought. I'll find the strength to do it in the peace and quiet there. As the Farfarer landed at the foot of the mountains, Renato was surprised to find Lapino there. What are you doing here? Oh,
You wouldn't believe it. I was stowed away on an Imperial courier ship, dressed up as a combat nurse carrying a general's beak transplant.
This is not a great time, said Renato, who was pretty sure he did not, in fact, believe Lupino's story.
That's when you need your friends,
said Lupino. I just need some peace and quiet, said Renato, and grimly set out on the path.
Danced around the room yelling,
oh yeah, that's how we do it.
it was something he liked to do, but only after he'd killed all the witnesses.
Don't look down, he told himself. Don't look down. Renato told his friend how he had slaughtered the toads, and how he had nearly slain Zenobia.
A terrible burden, this Iblis stone,
Sympathized the rabbit. Yeah, but I need it. For the rebellion.
do you now?
You know, you're a pretty fine fighter before you're wielding a demonic decoration. Oddly, the sword wasn't whispering at him to kill the Pinot.
Up ahead in the mountains, there was a peaceful spot. If he could rid himself of his burden anywhere, it was there.
Look, it's not personal, but your mother wears army boots on her ears.
Hey! Wanna hook up?
Could be the new aerobics craze. Am I right?
Renato rubbed the fruit into his wounds. He felt better already. Renato wondered what would happen if he jumped. Would he be rescued by an emergency platform? the point of this gate? Did they think no one would notice the lever? Renato thought it would make a difference, snatching the Ibla stone before the Emperor could get it. It would destroy him. Zenobia and Lupino, they were both trying to save him.